Today we're going to talk about medical school histology. We'll talk about the rat intestines, very characteristic of the rat intestines. We'll start out with a little information on the different types of tissues and then identify some of those structures within the rat intestine. You'll be able to download and observe, interact with this specimen yourself by going to the URL that is indicated there. Thank you. Medical school histology, images of the rat intestine. Hi, I'm Larry Johnson. I'm a professor at Texas A&M University. Please consider subscribing to this VIBS histology YouTube site. You'll be able to observe and manipulate the images on your computer. Just go to this URL and download the presentation, and you'll be able to manipulate the images yourself, and we'll do that at the end of this presentation. So before we get into that, I just want to tell you about the four basic types of tissue. We have epithelium. Epithelium covers things. They line lumen, line cavities. Connective tissue, they connect things. That's a biological glue, holds tissues, other tissues together. Muscle for contractile force, and nervous tissue for communication and motor actions. Now, a distinguishing feature of epithelium, because we're going to talk about epithelium in the presentation, is the epithelium sits on the basement membrane, and right in through here we can see the basement membrane of the cell. This is the glycocalyx associated with the sugars that are located in the lumen, but there's also sugars here, carbohydrates that are associated with the basement membrane. Now, one characteristic of epithelium is they have different shapes, and they could have different shapes as they have, and they have different shapes. Could be flat, could be it could be cuboidal, it could be multiple layers, it could be like pyramid type shape cells. Another characteristic of epithelium is that they're attached to one another. The cells are attached to one another by junctions. And here we can see the different junctions, and located usually rather close to the lumen is where you have the maximum number of junctions. And this is a zone of occludens right here, which would occlude things from coming through, and that's how epithelial cells collectively are able to make a cavity, because they have junctions between adjacent cells. And those are not just junctions here, it's actually a junction all the way around the cell, as we'll see in a little bit. Now, in the intestine, we have epithelium on the inside. That's what lines the gut, and that's what that would be touching, interacting with the food that we eat. Also, at the other end of the gut, we have another epithelial sheath. These are mesothelial cells. Mesothelium as opposed to epithelium. Mesothelium comes from the mesoderm, epithelium comes from the ectoderm. And so we have epithelial cells at the surface, and also we have epithelial cells down at lining on the outside of the gut, lining the gut and outside the gut to facilitate the gut movement. There's also smooth muscle cells in through there, the connective tissue cells, and there's be some nerve cells, as we will see as we come along. Now, the epithelium lining the lumen could be stratified squamous, like in the oral cavity or the esophagus, but mostly the rest of the GI tract is simple columnar. You see these columns, and they're attached to one another by junctions that we talked about just now. And at the very bottom, the mesenchymal cells, those are actually like little cube cells located in through here. So we have columns or cubes in this case. Now, the lamina propria is a connective tissue below the epithelium. So this is the epithelium, and here's the connective tissue below, and we see some macrophages, we see some red blood cells, we see lymphatic in through there. And so there's a central lacteal, which is what that is, a lymphatic that drains fluid and takes fat to the bloodstream. And there's a large number of other cells. There's these macrophage cells that we can see right here. There's also plasma cells, eosinophils, mast cells, and macrophages, as we see. There's also smooth muscle cells that project through here. I don't see any right now, but we'll see some later. And so if we look at the outer layer of the gut, the mesenchymal cells would be in here. This is a smooth muscle. This is a submucosa. And lo and behold, we see a nerve cell right in through there. And these are epithelial cells. This is also smooth muscle cells in through there. But if you look at the interstitium in between, right in through here, so-called lamina propria, then you will see there's a macrophage in here. You see at the ultrastructural level, we can see where it's already eating up things and debris. There's a capillary, so this is the endothelial cell that we see there, very thin. There's a lymphocyte, another lymphocyte over here. This is a plasma cell that produces antibodies. And this is a smooth muscle cell. So these are smooth muscle cells here and here. And this is a smooth muscle cell as well. There's another one right here. And then these are the epithelial cells. So these are these cells right in through here. So we're talking about right in through this region is where you have the blood vessels, and we see a blood vessel there because the blood vessels are in the connective tissue. They're not in the epithelium itself. And here we can see another view of these epithelial cells, and this is the lamina propria, or the connective tissue below. We see there's goblet cells, and then there's these other columnar cells. And the goblet cells secrete mucus. We can see one here, and these other cells. And then we can see right in through there are terminal bars, little projections that we see there. Those are terminal bars. You can see those here, 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 and here. And here we see the goblet cell has a mucus secretion that comes out to discharge on the lumen, and it's about 3 to 4 liters a day of mucus that is produced there. Which today we'll be looking at Tolutin blue slides, and here we see the intestinal absorptive cell. There's absorptive cell, one cell right here. Here's another cell right here. Here's a couple lymphocytes migrating through. But we can also see these mitochondria, these little dots in through there are really like little rods. They are mitochondria. Also, you can note that the apex of the cell has this darkened structure. This is the brush border, and this amplifies the surface area for absorption to occur. So where one cell touches another cell, we see a terminal bar. Those are terminal bars right in through there, but it's not a bar itself. It actually goes all the way around the cell, as we will see later. So these are the terminal bars. We see one right here very nicely up through there and there. They prevent things from coming through and, in fact, facilitate the production of a lumen. And if you look at this drawing here, you see the terminal bars are really zonucleutins, which prevent things from going through. Zone meaning belt, it goes all the way around the cell, and a zone adherence. A zone adherence here and a desmosome. These three junctions that we see at the ultrastructural level make the terminal bars. Again, these are columns of cells like here. Columns of cells with brush border on the surface, amplified projections on the surface, and then we see the columns of cells which are held together by these junctions. Terminal bars up through there, and you can see where a terminal bar would be right in through there. But actually, it's a belt that goes all the way around, and we'll see that today. You can go to this website right here and see the intestine Tolutin blue stain slide. You can see those, and that's what we'll do right here. Go to that website. Useful usually to look at the darker ones of Tolutin blue, so we'll look at this one over here. And we'll look at a couple of things that we have. This is the smooth muscle layer, or the outer layer. Actually, there are, the mesothelium is over here. I mentioned to you there's a nucleus of one right here. You can see the nucleus of the mesothelium, and then this is smooth muscle, and smooth muscle here. This is circular muscle and longitudinal disposed muscle. Then this is connective tissue. Here we see a fibroblast. This is connective tissue running through there, and then here's a muscle layer. This muscle here marks the beginning of the mucosa. The mucosa goes from the muscularis mucosa, the lamina propria, and the epithelium. So all the way to the lumen, to the muscle, first muscle layer is the mucosa. In between the epithelium is the lamina propria. This is where we see blood vessels. This is lymphatic here, but these are little capillaries in through there as well. So if we look at the epithelial cells, we can see that there's simple columnar epithelium, and you can barely see the brush border along the surface. Let me look at some other ones. See if I can get a nice profile of the cells where you can see the column. There's the nucleus. These are goblet cells. And then here we can see the brush border very nicely in through there. And then here we can see the columnar cells. These are intestinal absorptive cells. These are goblet cells that secrete the mucous material. Now here we see cuts through the intestinal absorptive cell. So if you cut at the very top, you will see the brush border, and we see the brush border right there. Cut it right in through there, you see these little rods here are mitochondria, and you can see clusters of mitochondria in these cells. This is above the nucleus. If you cut a little lower, you'll be actually cutting through the nucleus itself, and then go back through some mitochondria again before you get to the lamina propria. This is epithelium, lamina propria, simple columnar epithelium that has junction between adjacent cells. And by seeing these type views, you can actually see that the terminal bars are not bars. Here you can see what would be a terminal bar here, here, and here, but you see it actually goes around the cell. So we can see that this is a terminal bar going in and out among the cells that we see. If you have a favorable view of that, you'll be able to see the terminal bars all the way around. Let's see if this is it. You can see the terminal bars. Let me see if I can get another view over here. I think this is maybe the better one. Yep, this is the better one here, where you can see that these terminal bars right here are really go all the way around cells, all the way around the cell, just like what we saw in the drawing. So these are the terminal bars that goes all the way around them, and this is a zona occludens and a zona adherens that goes there. Again, we can see these are artifacts here, don't worry about those, but you can see the columnar cells and the lamina propria inside there. In the lamina propria, we can see some smooth muscle cells running through there. We can see endothelial cells, which are flattened cells here, flat as opposed to columns, like we talked about the epithelium. Endothelium also come from the mesoderm. That's why we call this epithelium an endothelium. Here's more endothelial cells. You can see the nucleus thereof, and these cells with the granules inside there are mast cells, connective tissue cells, goblet cells, intestinal absorptive cells, and so these are the different cells that we can see. We can look at different areas, scroll it out, look over here at this side, and here we see some nice endothelial cells. These endothelial cells are the lymphatic. This is a centrolacteal. This is how fluid comes out from the intestines and gets into the bloodstream, and fats are absorbed in through there. This is epithelium here. This is connective tissue, and we see some mast cells. They have uniform granules about the same size, dark, are the mast cells that we see there. But these are nice endothelial cells that you're able to see. These are sections through the intestinal absorptive cells and the goblet cells. This would be the goblet secretions. But inside here, you should be able to see some macrophages with different sizes of products that are taken in. And you see these long line cells here. These are smooth muscle cells in the lamina propria. Lamina propria is a connective tissue between the intestinal absorptive cells. Now, in addition to having intestinal absorptive cells and goblet cells that we talked about, at the very base of these, we have these pennant cells. And we can see the big granules, and the granules are above the nucleus, and they project down. And as bacteria come down through here, they have lysosomal enzyme that would digest those. So here you can see the kind of bubbly cells here. These are the pennant cells, and they're located only at the base. You don't see them along the intestinal gland there. They're actually at the bottom. There's one more cell too I haven't been able to find lately, is the argentifin cell or endoendocrine cell that has granules at the base of the nucleus. And I haven't had a real good one to show you guys. So these granules are different from those of the mast cell, which is in the lamina propria. I'm talking about cells that are in the epithelium itself is what I'm looking for, is argentifin cell. with granules at the base, kind of like what we see here. I'm not sure that's what this is. It's probably what that is. But in addition to that, we have nerve cells, and the nerve cells in there are located in two places. Here we see smooth muscle cell. If we go around through here, we'll be able to see, slide there, this is some artifacts that we see there in the slide. But if you just look around, and this is what you have to do to look around, you'll be able to see. And here's a nerve cell. This is a nissal substance here. There's a nucleus and a nucleolus. There's a big nerve cell of the Meissner's plexus, which is located in the submucosa. There's another plexus of nerve that we see in through there. And here, in addition to the plexus, Meissner's plexus, there's an Auerbach's plexus. So this is the nucleus of a nerve cell that's located in the smooth muscle layers out through there. So we see the nucleolus and the whole nucleus and the nucleolus of that cell. More mast cells that we see here. And let me just take a look at this one and see what we can see. See if we can see the Auerbach's plexus a little better. So I'm just looking around. These are the endothelial cells that line that. This is a little arteriole that we see there. So this is lymphatics of the central lacteal. There are more Paneth cells in through there that we can see. And then most of the ones are the goblet cells and the intestinal absorptive cells. But here we can see some connective tissue cells that are located in through here, mast cells as well as other cells. And someplace in here we have like a little infection where we have way out of too many cells. And here we see it right here. These are probably lymphocytes. And also infection, you see neutrophils, lots of neutrophils. But this is way too high density of immune cells that should be in the lamina propria. It should be more like this, where you see some smooth muscle cells, you see some mast cells, and you should be able to see some macrophages in through there as gobble up different amounts of material, endothelial cells. So those are the cells that we see in the gut. So remember the different layers. You got the smooth muscle on the outside. You got the mucosa. So the mucosa is from the lumen to the muscularis mucosa. That's mucosa. This is a submucosa, muscularis externa. And then remember the very outer layer is a mesothelium that's located out there too. It's slick and slimy, so the guts can kind of move along. So that's what we will see in our images. So that's pretty much the end of the medical school histology images of the rat intestine. Thank you.